So hello, it's the week of Blue Monday this week, and I guess it's particularly blue for most people because of COVID and what's going on around us and pretty hard work. I think I've done a number of these videos over the recent months, and I've been really interested in what I think I'm seeing in the energy levels of people as a response to what's going on. And there really feels like there's a depressive energy about at the moment. It feels like for a lot of people, they feel like they want to sort of pull a duvet over their head and not come out and not engage. The world seems quite quiet and quite detached, I think was a word that cropped up a lot this week for people. And I was doing a presentation for an organisation earlier on this week, and we kind of asked them what they would like to get out of the presentation, as it was a Blue Monday presentation. And we got a really interesting but very different set of requests from them. One was that they wanted to be cheered up. They wanted to be able to break out of this cycle. They wanted to have some fun. They wanted something a bit lighthearted. And that for me was very much about breaking out of this place, breaking out of this cycle. And the other thing that almost everybody in this presentation wanted to explore and discuss and learn a bit more about was loss. And that might be loss of a way of life, that might be loss of a loved one, that might be loss of a job, that might be loss of human contact, but talking about loss. And it was really interesting that these were the two things that people seem to want. And we talked a lot about anxiety, and we talked about depression, and we talked about health and well-being. And one of the things that we talked about in terms of this breaking out of the cycle is that there's lots of different ways to do it, and it's not just about having a laugh. And I came up with a list of 20 things, which I thought I might share with you now, which was quite fun. So when we notice the anxiety starts to build up, or we notice the depression starts to build up and our energy levels start to go down, it's often a good thing to do something really constructively deliberate, whether we feel like it or not. Because often if we go with our feelings, we'll just get more and more caught up in the process. So whether we feel like it or not, to do something like one of these 20 things. Walk into a different room. Change your state, change your scenery, change your stance. Make a cup of tea. Brush your teeth is a good way to reconnect to your body, because often anxiety and depression will take us away from a really contactful sense of who we are, I think, and brushing your teeth is a good way to get back to that. Plan a nice meal. Great way to look after yourself. One of the things that really came out of this presentation was the importance of self-care, whether you want to do it or not. It's like structure it in because it's important. Go for a walk. Phone a friend, and a useful friend. People who say things like, I don't know what you're worried about, or you'll be fine, or there's loads of people that are far worse off than you are, pull yourself together. They tend not to be good people to go to. Write one page in your journal about your anxiety or your depression or just your mood. Set an anxiety ending alarm. So like on most smartphones now, you can set an alarm, and the alarm can be a song from your music playlist. So if you know you've got a quiet afternoon with not much other human contact about, and you think you might not be feeling great come mid-afternoon, you could set an alarm on your phone to go off at 3:34 that is, I love you, baby, and if it's quite all right, I want you, baby, to keep me warm at night, and just see what a difference that makes to your mood come 3:35. I really like that suggestion. Where did we get to? Number 9, do some press-ups. I am a former personal trainer once upon a time ago, so big fan of the old press-up. Drink a glass of water. Have a hot shower. Another great way to reconnect to your body, to change out of the mood that you're in. Write a page in your journal that is not about your mood right now. Phone a different friend. Change your clothes. Put your favourite album on. Engage with a therapist. We talked a lot on this presentation during the week about the importance of having a reliable other, some structure, and somebody to be with. And I'll come back to that in a minute when I talk a little bit about the stuff that we talked about loss. Watch some comedy, read a chapter of a book, have a stretch. And that was 19 out of 20. So the challenge for you watching this, if you've got to this point at 5 minutes into the video, is to come up with the 20th. So the interesting thing that we talked a lot about loss. We looked at several different models of loss and grieving. And when we looked at the various different stages of them, we noted that a lot of those stages were difficult to experience. And when we looked at the different stages of loss and grieving, which all stem from a sense of loss, separation, and attachment. So losing a thing that we have been attached to, how do we learn who we are in that separation? And then what do we reattach to when that thing, that person, that way of life is no longer there? The new normal, if you like. I still don't know how I feel about that phrase really, but I think there is something profound about it. And so there were a couple of things that really came out of this discussion about loss. One was that a lot of these stages are quite difficult to go through. I think there's a degree of grieving which is quite mindless. And I think it's quite difficult for a lot of people to feel like they're losing their mind. So I think you'll get it back. A normal process of going through a grieving stage is to feel quite mindless, but then to get your mind back again. But the fear of going crazy for a lot of people is very significant. That crops up quite a lot in the therapy that I do with people. I think there's and to come back to this idea of engaging with a therapist around loss, is that it's really, really useful and helpful to have somebody who understands the stages and be able to have a sense of a guide, somebody who knows the journey, and to have somebody who will keep their own mind whilst you go through some of the mindless stages of loss and grief. And that was a really important part of what came out of this, that it's so much easier to go through loss with another who has not lost the same thing that you've lost. And that was a really important part of the discussion that we had. So I wanted to check in and just kind of touch base about what I think I'm seeing in people in the world at the moment, and what I think is helpful. I might come back and do something about what I think I'm seeing that's not very helpful, but I think that's going to be about kind of giving into it. I think diving under the duvet, I don't think is very helpful right now. I do think there's cause for hope, and I think what I'm seeing is quite a lot of hopelessness and people detaching is probably the word I'm looking for, from some of the more useful things going on in their lives right now. It feels like the world's getting quite quiet, and I'm not sure how helpful that is for a lot of people. But the things that came out of the workshop this week, and that I've been talking with some of my clients about this week, are about the importance of self-care. Whether you feel like you want to do it or not, don't rely on your feelings as a guide for when you look after yourself. Look after yourself as a point of principle. That loss is a difficult thing to go through, and it's probably easier to go through with somebody else. And that changing your state and changing your mood, being able to step out of where you are at the moment, was really, really helpful. And I still really love the idea of that 3:34 p.m. alarm of "I love you, baby." So I'm going to leave you with that. And I hope you're doing well, and I hope you are doing okay on arguably the most depressive week of a long, long time. So keep your chin up and look after yourself and stay connected to you and what you're good at and somebody else who loves you. Take care.